All right. Aloha, everyone. Everybody made it. Awesome. So just want to welcome everybody to Gathering the Next Generation of Leaders. Mahalo for joining us. This is your first time joining us. I'll just go through some of the housekeeping. So this is being recorded currently, and then after the webinar is over, we will be sharing the recording. And then for questions or comments or feedback, you can use the question and answer feature or chat feature. And then if this is your first time joining us, you will be added to our email list for future presentations. And then at the end, there will be a survey that pops up if you would like to share your mana'o or your thoughts. This is where we get future ideas for future topics for webinars. So why don't we go ahead and let's see here, get started. So just to give you an idea, this is our fourth year doing these webinars, and they're the second and fourth Fridays of the month. And originally they were scheduled for our scholarship recipients. So there was less than 100, I think, scholarship recipients that were watching these webinars to help educate them, bring awareness to what was going on in the Native Hawaiian community, help them to network and get to know folks out in the community that they would maybe possibly working with in the future. Well, in the past 2 to 3 years, these webinars have been so well received that actually now our email list has grown over to 1,000 folks that have reached all the islands and the continental US. So we're really excited this year. Every year we try to have a theme for these webinars. And this year the theme is Aloha Aku, Aloha Mai, which basically means collaboration and mutual goodwill. So the idea behind that was to not make our webinars Native Hawaiian exclusive, but actually invite those that we live with, the Native Hawaiians live with. So to make it more accurate and more realistic of the environment and the landscape that we live in. Because in reality, a lot of the things that affect the health of Native Hawaiians also affect our Native relatives. So that's the idea behind that this year. So we're really excited with the schedule that we have and the guest speakers that we have coming up. I am very pleased and honored to actually introduce the guests that we have this morning. Of course, Sheri Daniels is my boss, so now she knows I showed up to work today and did my job. And then we have Halaevalu Vakalahi, and then we also have Michael Bird that are representing folks. Just out of curiosity, Sheri, where are you calling in from?
I'm actually at Huino Kiolopono, which is our Native Hawaiian healthcare system center here on the island of Maui. So I get to kind of be in direct service today and for the last few months. So it's been nice to be here.
Mahalo. And Maui's your home island, right?
Right.
And then Halaevalu, where are you calling in from?
From Washington, D.C. Just here for a week, and then I'm coming back on Sunday.
So it must be dinner time over there?
Yeah, it's about 3 o'clock.
Okay. And then Michael, where are you calling in from?
Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, so it's nice and hot over there right now, isn't it?
Well, actually, it feels, I think as of yesterday was the first day of fall, so it's already starting to cool off a bit, which is, the mornings are lovely and the evenings aren't so bad either. Yeah, that's good.
Very nice. Before I introduce you all, do all three of you know each other?
Yeah.
Okay,
a little, just a little.
Kind of, sort of.
Well, today's the day then. Okay, so I will go ahead and we'll start off with Sheri.
This is nervous. What's gonna?
Okay, I'll start off with me. My name is Lisa Leilani Ka'anai, and I'm the engagement specialist for Mauli Ola Nā Lama Lama, which is the Hawaiian Healthcare Workforce Development Center of Papa'olalokahi, which is the Native Hawaiian Health Board. And so we're happy to have you all here. And I'm going to first introduce Sheri. Sheri Ann Daniels assumed the helm of Papa'olalokahi in April 2016. Born and raised on Maui, Dr. Sheri Ann Daniels is a graduate of the Kamehameha School's Kapalama campus. She holds degrees in the field of counseling psychology and has several licensed certifications. She has more than 25 years of experience in social services programs across Hawaii in both the nonprofit and government sectors. She was recognized in 2014 with the Maui County Women of Excellence Award. Other awards include the Pacific Business News 40 Under 40 in 2010 and Ka'ipu Kukui, the fellow in 2008. She's actively involved in various community organizations on Maui, including Hawaiian language education. This is the time to continue building partnerships and bridging gaps in order to address the overall health needs of Native Hawaiians, per Sheri. Beginning in early 2020, she shared co-leadership for the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander Hawaii COVID-19 Response, Recovery, and Resilience Team, otherwise known as NHPI 3R, for which Papa'olalokahi served as the backbone organization. Committed to meeting the needs of our community through public policy and strategic partnerships, she was named among Pacific Business News 2022 Women Who Mean Business. So now you can see why I showed up to work today. Okay, moving on to Michael Bird. Michael E. Bird is a Kiowa Pueblo Indian from New Mexico. He is the first American Indian and social worker to serve as president 2000 to 2001 on the American Public Health Association board, and the first one in the organization's history. Mr. Bird has more than 30 years of public health experience with Native American populations. He served in various capacities within the United States Public Health Service, Indian Health Service for 20 years. He was executive director of the National Native American AIDS Prevention Center, and he was the first Native member of the National Policy Council at AARP, where he served for 6 years. Mr. Bird continues since 2007 as a member of the Health Advisory Committee for the National Collaborating Center for Aboriginal Health in Canada. Mr. Bird earned a master's degree in social work from the University of Utah and a master's degree in public health at the University of California, Berkeley. In 2018, he was recognized by the University of California, Berkeley School of Public Health as one of the 75 most influential alumni in the 75-year history of the School of Public Health. In 2022, he was recognized as a distinguished alumnus by the University of Utah. So welcome, Michael. And then for Halaevalu, she is a member of the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander Hawaii COVID-19 Response, Recovery, and Resiliency Team, otherwise known as NHPI 3R. She is professor and dean of the College of Health and Society at Hawaii Pacific University. She is an immigrant Pacific Islander woman of Tongan heritage from the, and I might mispronounce this, Ofa, how do you say that?
Ofahengawe?
Ofahengawe family. Mahalo. Born in Tonga and groomed in Hau'ula by some of the finest women on the planet. She attended Laie Elementary School and Kahuku High School. Go Red Raiders. Outside of work, I try to enjoy what I missed most while being away from Hawaii. Talking story with her mom and dad who still live in Hau'ula, having a Zippy's meal with her son, enjoying a drive around the island, laughing for no particular reason with the manawahine in my NHPI communities, and perhaps most rewarding for the future, real-time mentoring and nurturing of NHPI young women towards achievements in higher education. And with that, I'd like to welcome all of our guest speakers today. So what I was going to start this morning's webinar off with was a poll of our audience. And I apologize if you're on your phone. I'm not sure if the poll works on phones, but please do participate on if you're on your computer. So the first question is, where are you calling from? Calling in from. This is for the audience.
Thanks for pointing that out, Lisa, because I was like trying to click and then I see down hosts and panelists can vote. So I was following directions. I was following directions.
Right? The script. We're just following the script.
So compliant.
That's good to know that I can tell her what to do and she'll follow instructions. Okay, the second question is, have you heard Sheri present before? The third one is, have you heard Halaevalu present before? The fourth one is, have you heard Michael present before? And then, is this your first time attending one of our webinars? And then what is your favorite? Pumpkin pie, pecan pie, bread pudding, none of them, or other?
What if it's all?
Right.
Could be. I should have put all. That's a good point. They probably put other. Okay, so I'll just wait a couple more minutes to see how many more. So it looks like 11 have responded so far.
Is haupia pie a choice?
That could be other. Balu, that's other.
There.
Hopefully there's a drop down box when I click other, but
I was thinking like Thanksgiving time, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, and then once I'm going to give it one more second and we'll go ahead and end the poll and we'll see where our folks, what our audience, a little bit more about our audience. Okay, end poll. Let's launch the results.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Some people from the continental US.
we'll see Oahu. Oh. So 30% have heard you before, Sheri. Halaevalu, 67% no. And then Michael, you're a no and a no sure. Not sure.
And nobody wants to hear me again.
And is this your first time at one of our webinars? 40% said yes, so welcome. And then welcome back again for those returning. And then, wow, it's almost like 25, 25, 25. Interesting. Well, there you have it. Okay. So I almost feel like I don't need to moderate. I feel like you guys could do just fine on your own.
oh, you probably need to moderate. 'Cause-
Okay. I need to make sure you guys stop talking.
yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so let's get to know a little bit about each of you. First of all, I had asked you guys to turn in some pictures for us. And so we'll go from there and we can talk about the pictures that you all submitted. I'm going to start with you, Sheri.
Sure. Oh,
So these are
yeah.
your 4 children on the left.
right. So I have 4 children. My oldest is a sophomore in college at UH Hilo, and he's the one on the far right. And my youngest is on the far left, and she is a 7th grader at Kalama Intermediate.
And then your Kane in the middle.
Right. So, you know, I'm very fortunate, you know, I think everybody says that, right? Like they're so fortunate. I don't think I would say, you know, I have a horrible husband, but I have a very supportive partner in that, yeah, and we're actually going to be celebrating his accomplishments next week in Aotearoa. where him and two others from the UH Maui College campus will be participating in their graduation ceremonies. The three of them, Native Hawaiians, are receiving their PhDs that they completed last year. So it's the ceremonial part. So that's going to be really exciting to be part of, kind of uplifting other Native Hawaiians in their achievements. So yeah, so that's pretty exciting. And then the other picture that I have, I think we were asked by Lisa, like, you know, what shaped us, where's our leadership come from, and how we, you know, view things in our lives. And I think when I really think about that, it's for me, both my mother and my grandmother. And definitely, if I coin, you know, use the trending phrase of mana wahine, that's totally, you know, old school mana wahine, where it wasn't about the letters after your name. It wasn't about, you know, who you knew. It was really who you were as a person, and what you give back to those around you, especially your community. And so I think for me, my foundation is definitely because of these two wahine in my life, and really recognizing that the things and the choices that I do really is grounded in those lessons that they taught me when I was growing up. So that's really, I think, fundamental for me is these two pillars. So yeah.
Very nice, mahalo. And then we'll go to, oh, well, there we go. Let me go back. Okay, this is Halaevalu's pictures. I don't know why.
So, you know, I wasn't sure what to share, because I think I'm definitely the investment of many, of too many to count. But this picture on the upper left, these are my maternal grandparents. These are my mother's parents. They migrated here almost the same time we did. And even though they were a little older, they were still worried about the grandkids, you know, in terms of, okay, so who's going to be watching them when you all are starting a new life here in America? So my father's parents, they're on the bottom left. They came a little bit later just for a visit and then went back home. But I think one of the reasons why I had them here, and these are my parents in the middle picture, that they're my parents. I think one of the reasons why I have them up here, because I still remember, I have great memories of them making sure at the beginning of each year when school starts, you know, we take our vaipala, which is the traditional herbal medicine. They call it herbal medicine, and they say you drink it now, it's bitter and stuff, but you're going to be okay the rest of the year. You'll be just fine. And sure enough, every time they did that, never got sick the entire school year as a kid. So I put them there because even though they're no longer here, my grandparents are no longer here, they will forever be in my heart in terms of you cannot divorce yourself from your indigenous self, even if you're starting a new life here in America. So I came here as a kid, but you know, for me, I never forgot their lessons. And then my parents, they're still alive and kicking in Hau'ula. We'll live and die there, even though I try to, you know, promote, like, get out of the island, come and live with some of the other siblings who live here in the continental US. They said, no, Haula is home, and that's where we're going to live and die. So they sacrifice a lot just so that my siblings and I could be where we are today. And then the next picture, that is just me and my son and our cat. I don't know if are you able to forward it to that one, Lisa? So this is just my son Tu'i, he's 15, and our cat Hope. And this is my why. This is the reason why I'm even doing anything that's remotely productive. It is because I worry about him and his friends and his cousins and people in his age group and what the future is going to hold for them. So yeah.
Mahalo.
Oh, that's just him. When he was a kid, every time we came home and we went to the beach, he never like go into the ocean. He always tell me, no, mommy, I want to hear. I want to hear. So I always like, okay, whatever you want to hear, but you're going to get sand in your ear. So every time we came home, we take him to the beach. That's what he would do. So I took a picture of it one time where I took a picture and I said, I wanted to remember what he told me as a kid. He wants to hear. So I think I can unpack that one day when he's older. Yeah. Maybe the ancestors were talking to him.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah, use that for, yeah, later. So this one I snuck in there, Michael. So this is when I first met you, was at the American Public Health Association convention last year. And that was the ribbon lay where I made the ribbon lay. We gave him out to the elder and the dignitaries there. And this is Tertia. She works in our data and research department at Papa'olakahi. I have not yet met Halaevalu in person yet. Looking forward to the time when I can. However, we did, Donna and I think a couple other folks met with her about getting some writing advice. And as you'll find out later, we're going to talk about the book that she wrote. There you go, Michael. Very nice picture.
Sort of like before and after. Can you scroll over so that take that part of it out and move it over?
I don't know if I can.
Because there's on the right-hand side of the photo with the individuals, you'll see me in the corner, on the bottom corner, if you can, if it's possible. I don't know.
No, right here. Oh, I see. Right here at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Michael is this little boy right here on the right, if you folks can see that.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, my mother said I was cute, so I'm holding on to that.
You peaked back then, huh?
And this is a picture of, well, obviously I was a child, and two of my uncles and my aunt in the buckskin dress, and my grandfather had a dance troupe, and it was a way to make some money, among other things. But it's just a picture that I'm very fond of because, like I said, my father's in the picture, my uncle's in the picture, and my aunt, and I had nothing to say. I didn't give them authorization or permission to use my image, but they went ahead. So here we are. This is a more recent photo. Obviously, you can see what 30 years of public health has done to me or for me or whatever, but hey, I'm still here. And given the morbidity rates in our communities, we have to celebrate just the fact that we're here and we're not going anywhere.
Awesome. So do you still dance?
No, I haven't in some time. Just country western.
Oh, okay. We'll need to get that one next time. You did share with me a video. I'll put that up.
Oh, scary.
Let's see here.
I didn't realize what I was sending, to tell you the truth.
Too late now.
My mother, and my cousin, my mother's my cousin Don, that's my mother. With my mom again, you know, my cousin, my favorite cousin, Eva.
So that was your mom's, what birthday was that?
She's 88. Yeah,
And that was last year, yeah, or this year?
just this spring, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. Longer story there, but another time.
Well, so now that we got to know each of you just a little bit, you know, we wanted to start off this webinar year with some sort of leadership topic. And so, you know, gathering the next generation of leaders, we thought would be really appropriate because I think we all are, right? Across all Native people across the world are trying to find those that are, you know, going to take the helm for us and keep fighting the good fight. And so I don't know who wants to start, but you know, what is I guess the question is, what is leadership to you? What do you see in a leader? You know, you had to have started somewhere, right? You had someone to look up to, you had a role model, someone you may have even been intimidated by, right? And so I guess who wants to start first is like, who is your first thing? Like, that's the leader I want to be like.
Well, I'm just going to put this out. I don't think any of us, and maybe I'm speaking for others, but I don't think anyone ever told me this is someone who can mentor you.
Oh.
This is somebody who, you know, is a leader. Like I don't think anyone ever had that conversation with me or you know, what would make a great leader? What are those attributes? I think what I grew up with and what I recognize now is it's about doing and showing and not just talking, right? It's about watching, it's about listening, it's using all those skills and senses that we have as Indigenous Native people. And it's not about all the things that I can get, you know, the taps on the back on, that you do because it is the right thing to do. There is no, you're not questioning, you're not going, oh, wow, if I do that, I'm going to get some award. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be, no, you did because it was the right thing to do. That you knew that when you walked into somebody's house, you asked, hey, Auntie, how can I help? Right? Even as a child, what can I do? And, you know, and I think those are those lessons, but it was never like formalized lessons. This is how you behave. This is what you did. You didn't question that. You saw that that was part of your kuleana, your responsibility as a contributing member of this family. Now, not saying, you know, things were all roses and sunshine and rainbows, but I think you appreciated the things you had because it was often a struggle. There was often, you know, it wasn't cool to be Hawaiian when I was growing up. It really was not. And so I don't recall going to events or celebrating what it was to be a Hawaiian or even a woman or a wahine around that, right? So nobody was priming me to be a leader. And I think that is what's missing in some spaces today. Is there's this hunger for, oh, we want to be recognized, we want accolades, we want to do things because it's going to move us up a ladder. But I think you get more movement when you're not expecting those things, that you're doing it because you know it's going to help your community, it's going to help the greater, right? It's never, and at least for me as a Native Hawaiian, it has never been about the singular. It's always been about the collective. And that's one of the cool things, right? I always say this, that Hawaiians are like packs, right? You know, any or Pacific Islanders, or probably even indigenous natives, right?
Yeah.
We operate in a pack. Like we all can, 20 of us can squeeze into a 2-bedroom house and sleep everywhere, anywhere, right? It's that connection to each other that's way more important versus what am I going to get from this? And I think that is, so a question like this is really hard because I have plenty people to look up to for various reasons. But at the core, right, is it is not about, I wouldn't consider myself a leader. I'm not sure about Valu or Michael, but I get very uncomfortable having that kind of a kuleana put on me, because no, if this is what leaders do, then more people should be considered leaders. And I am like leader in training, right? Because I look at folks like Michael or other like Babette Galang from our office who always, right? It's like, there are other Yodas out there. I continue to be a student because I know that there's so much that I haven't even learned about yet. And so I think that's really important for me, that as a contributor, right, to our communities, to our people, that it's taking other people's strengths too and putting it into what is happening around us. I think there are so many people in our community that are smarter, that are more skilled, that are just as capable. And so how do I bring those pieces in so that we can leverage and we can move mountains? That's really, I think, for me, I'm always adding people to my list. I think as I've gotten older, I'm more aware of it. And so I'm constantly adding people. Lisa, it's anyone, right? That they don't have to be some kind of hoity-toity big shot. That's sometimes maybe not the ones we want. We want the ones who are doing the hana, doing the work, and really can understand what is happening in their communities and in their spaces.
And may I just build on that, because I think that that's the beauty and the versatility of Indigenous leadership, is that it is exactly what Sheri just described. It's not, it's kuleana. That's basically what it is. And it's kuleana to make leadership become visible, and that's through work, correct? So I want to build on that, because I'm thinking, you know, the first time I met Sheri, I want to answer that question. The first time I met Sheri, so I was doing my rounds, I was coming back home after 20 years here in the continental US, came back home to help take care of my parents. This was 4 years ago. And I was going around doing my rounds, you know, saying hi to people that I either met before or have not met before. And Puni and Adrian from Kula, Papakolea, I was asking them, okay, so who do I need to, who's the movers and the shakers in our community that I really need to? So they said, have you met Sheri Daniels? I was like, no, I have not. So what happened was the Council for the Advancement of Native Hawaiian, CNHA, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Kuhio, that was his first conference. This was like 2018, I think, right before COVID hit. And so I followed Adrian and Puni to the conference, and they said, Sheri's right there. So I went up, introduced myself, and as you can see, the rest was history. Because of, even though she doesn't think that she's a leader, well, that's really the beauty of Indigenous leadership, is because you just do. That's basically what you just do. However, it is also important when it comes to our children who are Americans as well. They're not just Indigenous, they're part of the American system and society. So to have grounding that is Indigenous leadership, I think our children are positioned, they're positioned very well for all of these things that they're going to have to do to make sure that our communities are better. So I like Sheri, I can come up with like a whole list of people who have invested in me as a person. And, our leadership positions, I think we're doing okay because of the fact that we got some grounding from home, like the manawahine in our lives. Even the men who have lifted for us while we try to get the education, while we try to get all of those things become important for this next generation, more important for this next generation. It was important for us so we can lift and we can be put in position, but boy, the next generation of Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders and indigenous Native Americans and First Nations, they're gonna need that. I just have a feeling the demand on them for leadership is going to triple. And I think they got their grounding in that indigenous way of doing and leading. The rest is just gonna be, they're gonna be bonus. Okay, it's just, they're gonna just be adding to that. So yeah.
Mahalo. Michael, any thoughts?
Well, I guess, first of all, I'd have to say that the three people that I really owe that were foundational for me is my mother. And I think my mother went to the 9th grade, had me when she was 17. I was blessed to have my mother, because my father was sort of missing in action, to put it mildly. And that's a longer story. But my mother was any good that has happened to me, anything that I've achieved, anything that, all the goodness that has happened to me is a direct result of my mother and my mother's love and my mother's direction. And to be honest, I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for her. Because a lot of things I could have gone in some other directions. The two other people that were critical to me were my father's parents, John Bird and Bertha Bird. And my grandfather was a leader in our community. Actually fought the federal government, was featured in Life magazine during the war years. Well, we had our Native people, and everyone was involved in defending the US. My grandfather was fighting the United States government because they wanted to build a dam that would have flooded many of our tribal communities. And it's something that took place in other Native communities where the dams did go through, and in upper New York State and Montana, tribal land was taken away from them and they lost the land. So I think that genetically I'm kind of hardwired. I'm fortunate that I got some good genes. But I also want to just quickly mention something that I think it has been referenced, but I think it's best stated by Dr. Kukuni Blaisdell, who I had the good fortune of meeting, and there's a host of folks in Hawaii that I've met and learned a great deal from. But I just want to read this real quickly. He said, "From our ancient chants, we learn that we and all of our cosmos are born in orderly fashion. Thus, all our cosmos are living, conscious, and communicating ohana. We Kanaka come from our sacred environment. This aina is our life. Aina means that which feeds, but our lands are resources colonized by the dominant Western worldview of individualism, materialism, exploitation, militarism, and racism. Caught in a cultural conflict, too many of us Kanaka despair and become self-destructive." I think there's a larger, I think all Indigenous people have their own traditional and cultural values, but there is this overlay in terms of colonialism and our historical experience. And it is very challenging. And I think we've got we're the generation that is here now has greater opportunity, greater support than some of us have had. But I think there also, I'll just say there's caution, because I've seen this. There also is a danger in people getting caught up and moving or denying or forgetting traditional cultural values and moving towards getting caught up with materialistic lifestyles, forgetting the community, and or making trade-offs that are not beneficial to the community. I'll just leave it at that.
Great, mahalo. So, going back to the title, Gathering Our Next Generation of Leaders, what does that make you think of, or what comes to your mind when that's said?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's that the title is loaded because like has been said before, Indigenous people are complex and integrated and intersected. However, whenever I hear gathering, whenever I hear next generation, I think about where I am as an academic, and what role does academia play in making sure what Michael just said, making sure that we're not trading one for the other, but then we're navigating both. I mean, we have some really brilliant young people these days. They can navigate this thing. They can navigate 4 different cultures if they wanted to, because they're on their phone and listening to their parents and doing everything else. So I know for a fact that their navigation skills is no doubt wonderful. But whenever I hear that, I think about the role of academia in positioning our communities for the next time something like COVID happens, for positioning our communities to get out of the rut of health disparities and things that have devastated our communities over the last decades. I think about that, but I have hope. I have hope. Our ancestors navigated the biggest body of water in the world with no compass, no fancy telescope, none of that stuff. They did it through intuition, through spirituality. So I wonder if our academic institutions could cultivate young people, young leaders for the future, Indigenous young leaders, in a way that they don't have to give up one in order to have the other. So I always think about that whenever I think about next generation and gathering. How do you gather them and authentically not make them give up something for something else? So yeah, so, just some broad thoughts about your question, Lisa.
I think, Valu, you bring up really good points from the next generation perspective. But I think we also, as a community, right, we tend to overuse our current leaders, right? Because they've shown us like, hey, they get them, they can do this. And so what happens is we keep calling the same people because, right, we see that what their track record is, and we want that. And so and nobody can say no, right? And then we burn ourselves out. But I think we overuse, not in a bad way, but because they are good. And I think the generation below usually are so cautious to come in because, right, culturally, right, we want to have that respect. We want to trust that our elders or that generation above can. And so, it's almost like we need to almost light the fire under the next generation. Like, no, take it on, try it. If you go and fall down, at least you have the elders and those around you to help pull you back up if you need help. And I think it's, how do we encourage that generation to take that step, right, to do it. But I think also culturally, we sometimes create this difference between generations. And I think we also need to figure out how we can create a bridge between the generations, because the landscape is so different. The world is so different, right? That our elders, you know, technology is probably the biggest one that is very scary, very overwhelming, very unclear for a lot of our older generation, where for, you know, the ones coming up, it's like nothing. And yet, how do we help that younger generation stay connected, like Michael said, right? Stay connected to the present and with your community and your culture, because that is, for the older generation, that's what they know. And yet this new way of being is so at times very foreign, which I think creates almost this, I'm going to dig my heels in a little bit, because what's happening around me is very scary, and it can be very potentially detrimental to our community. And so, right, so I think there's this push and pull, and sometimes I think the next generation kind of walks away, because it's like, I don't want to deal with the kupuna, you know, digging in their heels. I'd rather just walk away. And sometimes they go create something off on the side, which, you know, creates a whole other kind of confusion for communities. So I think we definitely have potential. It's, okay, how do we make sure those pieces and those connectors work in a way, right, that meets both of these very different, you know, generations.
So go ahead, Michael, if you have any thoughts. Otherwise, I have
Well,
other questions.
Yeah, just one other last thought, and that is that for me, and this was referenced in earlier comments, but for me, it's always been about the people, my community, and what's good for them. And so it always goes back to, you know, number one, who do you serve? We have to ask ourselves, who do we serve? Who do I serve? Am I serving myself? Am I serving this institution? I'm a failed bureaucrat. I was in IHS for 20 years, couldn't cut it, thank God. Anyway, but which is a colonial system, you know, and so I was part of that, and I had conflict. So it always comes back for me is, who am I serving? And being honest about that, because I think people can get lost when they forget who they serve. And I have always been about wanting to serve my people in an ethical, honest, forthright manner. And it has worked. I'm content with what I've done and the way I've done things. I don't apologize. I've made mistakes in my own way, but it's never when it came to the question of who do I serve.
May I add something, Lisa? I think just building on both what Sheri and Michael is saying about, Sheri brought up the succession planning. I think that was the point, succession planning. And yeah, you know, the difficult part is still navigating a system, like Michael said, a system that wasn't built for us, but is now, we're part of it. Even though it wasn't built for us, we're part of it. So how do we legitimize? And I think that's a worry that we have all the time. How do we legitimize a speaker if they don't have all this alphabet soup behind their name? Okay, how do we legitimize that? And I think that's what we're trying to build as succession planning. But again, you know, our young people, they probably just, I don't know. I'm a big proponent of higher education, and you know, sometimes I think, how come they keep calling the same people to say the same thing they've been saying for the last decade? That's because we haven't had the next group come up to take the reins. It feels like that sometimes. And so I think the succession planning, that's something we need to work on, like quick and hard in terms of Indigenous people. How do we get the next group? But by we burn out everybody who's been asked all the time to do this research, do this thing, lead this, lead that. I think that that's something that we really need to focus on. And you know, I'm glad that both Sheri and Michael brought that up, because at some point, all of us like retire. But how do we do that? You know, how do we do that knowing that the next group, they're not there yet. They're not there yet. And I think, you know, we see that in academia, talking to some of my mentors who are African-American women, and 1, 2, 3, about 5 of them have already retired. They've done their duty and they retire. And the last thing that they said to me in some of our conversation over the last year or two have been, so who do we get to fill in? Because that pipeline is not as rich as we thought it would be. So some of us, you know, were too busy for certain things that they were passionate about. So we're not able to fill in. Some of us are not qualified for it, so we can't fill in. So I think that succession planning, we're going to have to work really hard and quickly. You got to get it done quickly. So sorry that, you know, urban area.
I think the next webinar I should have is you 3 and then 3 of the next generation in the same room, right? Then we can start talking, right? Anyway, sorry.
Well, and I
ahead.
think, but you know, Lisa, I think we also got to talk about our own egos, right? I mean, yeah, we're doing it for community, but you know, at what point do we say we can't fix it all? We are not the Messiah who's going to lead our people to freedom and whatever else. That when do I think leaders currently recognize that we're going to have to put some trust, and it might not be, we might take 5 steps backwards, and it's going to be okay, because that's what happened when we came on, right? That there is a learning curve. I think sometimes leaders forget that we were in that same space 10, 20 years ago. But we forget what it feels like, right? We think, oh, we did all this stuff, they, you know, just pick it up. But I think we also need to be mindful about that for ourselves, that we got to put our own ego aside. And I think I would like to see leaders be spectators on the side too, and not always be the ones running the show, but enjoying the show, right? And not dying on the job because they were so passionate about it. So I think we also have to recognize that piece for our older leadership group.
I'm just going to check in with our audience. If there's any questions or comments or feedback, please feel free to add it in the chat or the question and answer. Looks like Kamaile has a question. Go ahead, Kamaile.
Aloha and mahalo. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you all for being on this panel today and for your skills and expertise. I'm from Kailua, Hawaii, but I currently live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm a health equity consultant for the Department of Family and Preventive Medicine there. And I have visited this thought of where the next generation of leaders is coming from often. Some of the things that you guys mentioned today, I really identify with. Sheri, when you say we're reluctant to step forward, it's true, like, because essentially we're taking on the roles of our kupuna and we don't want to dismiss you. And then there's always, we don't want to offend either. But I love what you talked about, trust and trusting the next generation. And Halaevalu, I love what you said about our skills, because it's true, we have more technical skills now because of all the new technology, and we're actually able to live in between our mixed culture spaces, because I have Haole ancestors and Asian ancestors. And then I really feel what you said about academia, there's real barriers there, like lack of pathways for Indigenous youth to have financing. And we definitely need mentors and advocates for those opportunities and, programs to facilitate that access. And even at the University of Utah, they just offered scholarships to all of the Indigenous youth within the state, which was a great thing to see. I'd love to see that in Hawaii as well. But some of the things I know that our communities are dealing with today, some of the barriers for our education are some real serious mental health issues that we're still living through because of what we went through, of losing our land, rights to our resources, and our land being harmed. That really deeply affects us youth. And also the social determinants of health, like a lot of us are still struggling for housing, food, connection, and then access to programs. Sometimes it comes with you need IDs. I know our Samoan and Tongan counterparts sometimes don't always have documentation for that. And then, our cultural identities. I come from a very mixed plate. And so connecting with all of those different cultures kind of, I didn't realize, but I'm only 17% Hawaiian, and the rest is made up of other Polynesian cultures. So, but those are my thoughts. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity and for your this space.
Thank you, Kamaile. So you know what? So this is the kind of conversation that is really, really helpful because of the fact that all four of us, including you, Lisa, are in positions where some of these things we can collaborate and partner in doing. So let me give you an example. So for a long time, I was carrying around this little program that I call Mana Wahine. I went from one university to the other and never caught, no one really wanted to do something like that. So I came back home and I was like, okay, let's see what we can do with this. So I wrote for a grant, never got it. And then I met Dr. Sheri Daniels. And I said, you know what? We gotta get something going. This is in regards to what Kamaile was saying. We gotta get something going for those women, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, or any women from underrepresented community in Hawaii who's almost there. They almost get their degree. The problem is they don't have the couple $100 or couple $1,000 to get them through the door. Well, that was part of POL's vision. That's part of Dr. Daniels' vision. So she said, okay, what do we need to get this done? So we're now a second cohort of the Mana Wahine program at Hawaii Pacific University. And boy, they're so excited. They're excited not just for the scholarship. They're excited for the fact that they have each other. So now they can co-mentor, and then me and another faculty were their faculty mentors, but they have each other. They can co-mentor. These are local kids from Hawaii, women, Mana Wahine, who's going to, we already charged them, you're going to be leaders in the future. So you got to get all that alphabet soup behind your name and then come back to the community and do what you can to build up. So I think, Kamaile, point taken. We do need a lot more programs like that. And we do need, and I really think we can do it. We do need a lot more resources for Indigenous students, especially in Hawaii. I'm not really sure how our Mana Wahine girls are living in Hawaii and yet still going to school full time and have a family and have mom and dad they got to take care of and still are riding it. They're going through. They're going to graduate from either undergraduate or graduate. So.
Well, Valu, I think we can also give a teaser for our little next collaborative project we're working on. So Mana Wahine was really how do we get people up and out and in the workforce and in their community? But we also recognize that we got to help build leadership capacity. And so I've been, we ran a project this past year at Papa called Ulu Kukui, which was really looking at building community leadership and community leaders from the perspective of they want to help community. You don't need to have the alphabet soup. You can be passionate about being a leader in the space that you hold. And so how do we uplift that? So we identified a handful of them in different communities, and we did some learning spaces with them. We recognize that, okay, that was great. It was great lessons, but people want the certificate. People want that. And if you look now, a lot of colleges are putting out certificates of leadership classes and learning. So I went to our colleagues at HPU and I said, you know, Valu, can you help me design a certificate program for Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander leaders that really is, that culture is embedded in that learning, that it's not about the, you know, the CEO pathway or the ED pathway, but how do they understand all of those skills, which are learnable skills, but how do we help integrate cultural skills and learning and beliefs and values into who they are as a leader? And so that is something we've been back and forth on, and we're piloting it. I think we're looking at next summer, but there are a lot of these certificate programs, big name universities do them around diversity, you know, equity and inclusion around, but that's great and wonderful, but those pieces are not cultural DEI pieces. They're very non-us. And so I want to see a DEI that's culturally grounded from a cultural lens with all of those wonderful buzzwords. But right, so that's the project that we're hopefully will be rolling out in 2023 in the summer. So yeah.
Just real quick before I turn to Michael next, it is 10 o'clock. If folks have to leave, that's okay. We'll send you the recording. We actually scheduled this a little bit more than an hour, just in case it was going to take longer. So you're more than welcome to stay, but if you have to leave, we totally understand. So just an FYI. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Michael, go ahead.
Yes, I guess there are two things I wanted to just reflect on in my own life story and my own life experience. And that is, I referenced this already, I think, as a young Native man, having a father that was, you know, challenged with substance abuse and many other family members, I might add. But that was something that was extremely challenging for me to have to deal with. But in my life and in my history, the other challenge, though, I'll just say, has also been the issue of racism. And there have been people that have been helpful and supportive, but there also have been people who were not helpful and were not supportive. There were people who opened doors and supported me and encouraged me, but there were just as many people, or maybe more, who it was real clear that they didn't want me in the room. They didn't want me to be part of a program. And when I became president of APHA, it was interesting, the places that opened the door and invited me in and felt like I had some value to bring to the conversation, and the other places that still maintained the doors were still closed. And so part of my history is I come highly rejected, and I'm fine with that, because if nothing else, it teaches you who your friends really are.
Yeah.
But the sad thing is, it's not just happening to me, it's happening to many of us who get credentials, who have experience, who do jump through all the hoops. And in certain places, even in public health arenas, I'll say this, that people are not as open as you would think, that not as open. You know, everybody can talk about diversity, equity, and social justice. I've heard that for my whole life. I'm at a point now, finally getting a little wiser, which is another quality I think we need to talk about, wisdom. But I'm at a point now where it's like, show me what have you done and what are you doing? Don't just be talking about equity and diversity and social justice. We got one Native person over here that's, going to take care of everything, or we've recognized one Native person in 30 years, but nobody since then. So it's really about not just and it's holding these people accountable that do that and calling them out and naming it for what it is, and building alliances and allies across all of our communities, because we have more in common than differentiates us. So thank you.
Mahalo. We did get a comment. Mahalo for recognizing the handoff between generational leaders. And then also a question, can we get contact information to reach out regarding the classes workshops about building leaders? I'm very interested.
Yep.
All right. So I since we're talking about, I feel like in a way that we're not saying is protecting the next generation at all costs, right? We want to embrace them and have them believe in themselves, that we believe in them. I don't know why I'm talking like that. I'm just the moderator.
You're an excellent moderator.
But you know what I mean? Like, it sounds like, and the next one, I'm not kidding, is having the next generation be present, to hear that coming out of the mouths of the actual leaders that are out there doing. Like, it would be a relief, right? For them to hear, like, they got a tough road ahead of them, and how do we get there? And to know that they're going to be supported, I think. So anyway, gonna take more questions, comments. That's wonderful. And then I kind of wanted to, I know this isn't quite a segue into it, but I also wanted to talk about the book that you wrote, Halaevalu.
The mentorship book?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just real quickly, I mean, the mentorship book that's a couple of decades culmination of my friends and I. I am one of, I think there's 5 of us, Sandra Starks, Gail, Krista, myself, and Catherine Schmidt. And we have been running mentoring programs for ever and ever. And so we decided, why don't we do something to sort of send off Dr. Starks, who is the first author. She just retired and she earned it. She said, I earned this, so I'm going to retire and have a great time. But it was sort of like our culminating experience and sort of her send off to the sunset or sunrise, whatever we want to call it, when people go off to retirement. But basically, the book talks about mentoring women into leadership, specifically in academia. But the same kind of models that's talked about in the book could be used for just about, there you go, for just about any kind of leadership. And so I think it's timely. And, when Kamala Harris became the first woman VP, this book had just about to come out. So we gave her a big shout out in the book, because it was just timely before the book came out. She became the VP, the vice president of the US. And so, but that's basically what it is. It's, it's got tons of theories in there that an individual could take and use it to conceptualize what kind of leadership style that they want to embrace. It's got stories in there. So I think that's one of probably my most proudest accomplishment, is the collaborating and partnering with my best of friends and writing a book like this. So by the way, so the authors, there's a method to that madness. So Dr. Starks, myself, and Dr. Schmidt were sort of like the seasoned faculty or leaders, you can say. Dr. Starks and Dr. Schmidt. I'm sort of like the next generation. So I'm right next to Dr. Schmidt. And then the two in the middle, they're the up and coming generation. So even that, to the title and the authorship, was symbolic of how we have been doing mentorship in the past decades. We have just made sure that they're surrounded by support. At the same time, like both Michael and Sheri said, sometimes you gotta let them fly. And if they fail, that's all right, you know, come back up again and dust yourself off and keep moving forward. So I hope, you know, when people read the book, I hope you have a sense of commitment to the future, and especially for women in leadership.
And I do have to say, Valu, I actually got these books for all of my alaka'i at our organization. And I shared it with colleagues on the continent that are incoming executive directors and things like that, because that's how we also uplift each other, right, in that. So, you know, I think it's a really good book. It has really good, just, I think I can understand, I can relate to it. So it's really nice to read something that you go, oh yeah, I get it, right? And not try to fit myself into things. So that's really nice.
Congratulations. It's a wonderful contribution to us all.
Thank you.
Yes, mahalo. Another question is, what are things that we can do in the homes to raise next generation's leaders? I myself try to be a role model, but sometimes it doesn't seem like it's enough. Hashtag protect YPO.
Wow.
That's
you know what, I know all three of us have some really good experiences to share, but just real quickly, I don't think we leverage our indigenous communities enough. I think, okay, yeah, you can be a good role model at home like I am, but boy, when my son needs some talking to, he's going to be in Haula. Okay, he's going to be spending some hours over there talking to not just the grandparents, but aunties, cousins, uncle, whoever is there. So leverage your ohana, leverage your community. You know, if they're not listening, take them for a drive, you know, go get some zippies and just talk stories a little bit, and they'll be fine. But I think there's enough people in the community to talk and support and just give guidance when necessary. And don't be afraid to reach out.
And I think to dove on what Valu said too is, you know, some people might say, well, I don't have those spaces, you know, I try to create that in my home. But that's the thing, is engaging the next generation, whether it's your kids or your nieces or nephews or your mo'opuna, right? Like being present at things, even if you're just on the peripheral edge looking in, right? And you're not actively sitting at the table, but you can put down your hali'i, your mat, sit down and listen, and just make those kinds of spaces available for those, because they may seem like they want to be in 100 other places and that you drag them there, but something's going to click. Somebody is going to just drop a few pearls of wisdom to them or in their ears, and that's what they're going to take away. And when you least expect it, they're going to come back and be like, oh, I remember when I heard Uncle say this, or remember when we went to that, you know, sit out up in the valley where the kupunas were. Wow, I remember seeing this or hearing this, or how come this happened, right? Then you start having those conversations that they initiate. And so I think you just got to keep providing the space and the opportunities outside of you, because like Valu said, you know, especially our kids, they tired hear us, right? They go and hear them from everybody else but us, even though we said that 100 different ways. So I think you got to give them space and opportunities, go everywhere. And like Michael said, we don't put enough into our own traditions and our own values. And I think, how do we start just coming to the space to be a part of? I think it's really important.
Wow. It is 10:14. Maybe just a couple more questions. Let's see here. I have a couple of questions. So, leaders, you know, can be looked at as superheroes, right? That can do anything, right? And so to stay balanced and grounded, right? Without feeling overwhelmed, like you need to save the world and everything's on fire, but yet you're trying to keep your composure and not lose it. Like what keeps you grounded? What do you do for self-care? And what advice would you give to someone? Like, you know, sometimes I feel like the next generation internalizes so much trauma from the entire world, right? They see people from another side of the country, the world, the globe, suffering, and they feel like they want to go help them, and they want to help their community members, and then you want to help, you know. So what advice do you give to folks to stay grounded? What do you do to not feel overwhelmed? We'll start with you, Michael.
Well, I'll say this. I pray and I run physically. The only way I can, one of the best things for me, it sustained me for almost 71 years now, is the fact that I try to take care of myself. And the only way I can cleanse my head, my heart, and my soul is to engage in something that's physical. And it's good for me. And the other thing is, I guess I'll just real quickly, one of the things we need to reflect on and utilize in whatever we do is humor. And Native humor is, you know, people think we're not funny. We got some of the best, we're some of the joyous, happiest people when we're together and talking story, sharing stories. One of the things I constantly tell people in the public health arena, I said, well, you know, yes, it's bad. Yes, it's terrible. Yes, looks like we're really screwed, whatever. I said, but let me tell you, it's not over. I said, until Native people, when American Indians start migrating to Canada and Australia and New Zealand and the Pacific, I said, until then, we have to continue doing the best we can with what we have. But when Indians leave, then it's over. Turn out the lights. The party's over. When Indians start bailing, you know it's over. There, sorry.
Gosh. Okay, how about you?
So I you know, just building on that, I mean, grounding all of us, I'm pretty sure, you know, it's our ohana in our community, right? They keep us grounded. At the same time, so does structural racism, so does oppression. That grounds me because it keeps me reminded of why I'm even in the fight. In fact, it lights my soul on fire. Whenever I hear that or I see that, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to stay in the fight. I ain't retiring yet. I'm going to stay in the fight. So I think it keeps us grounded, but also grounds us up, okay, lifts us up. I think one of the things that I will always be grateful for is, you know, my parents, in their wisdom, we did not leave Hawaii until we were like adults. Everything was done here in Hawaii. You know, you're gonna go on vacation. Oh yeah, we're gonna go on vacation. Vacation in Hawaii. Give me a break. Okay. So as a kid, complained the entire time about why I'm not going to the continental US, mainland, we called it at that time. But my parents always said, don't worry, you're going to thank us. When you grow up, you're going to thank us. So that kind of grounding in culture, that kind of grounding in home, I think for me, I will always be grateful for. Because I lived off island for 20 years. I lived here on the continent for 20 years. So I never forgot who I was because of that initial grounding. So I think if anything, it's those indigenous knowledge, I guess you can say indigenous ways of doing things, that has remained my grounding all these years.
That's wonderful. Sheri?
I think for me, I think as we always need the reminders, like Valu said, right, of who we are as a person and the values we hold. And I think we don't give enough credit for those that give us the slap downs every so often, right? The gentle reminders, but it's not usually gentle, right? Around, forget who you are. Don't forget where you come from and the values that are pumping through your body, right? The DNA you carry. And I think that's really important to keep me grounded, is to make sure to have those gatekeepers around me. Because oftentimes, right, when we don't like hero and what we do, we just kind of go on to the new great thing. But when you keep those around you, you have no choice but to really recognize where you're struggling and where those blind spots are for you. So I think having that is really important for me. And I think recognizing that you aren't going to do everything in, a 24-hour period. You're not going to, that it's okay to give yourself some grace, that it may take you a week or two to get to an email or to a response. That's really important, to give yourself the grace to do that. And that you don't, take a breath. I think we forget about breathing. We're always so go, 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 go. Everything's so instantaneous that we don't stop and just breathe. And so I think that's really important as well.
Mahalo for that. Any other questions or comments as we wrap up? I do want to send a mahalo or thank you to Kamawala Kala'i and Ka'imi Pono Hano Hano for being my tech support during this webinar. And just mahalo to our guests for making the time today to share with us. And then also for the audience, the attendees, and those that will actually see the recording later as well. Just go ahead, Michael.
Just one comment. When I start packing my bags, I'll text you and email you all when I'm out of here. Okay.
I'm gonna put you on speed dial. I got your phone number. I better hear from you.
I'll take you I'll take a picture of my bag so you'll know. Oh, okay, that's all. He's out of here. He's going to New Zealand.
And I'll be like, bye, Sheri. Sorry, I gotta go.
And Lisa, I know we're wrapping up, but I wanted to just to say some closing thoughts from my side.
Sure.
I think it was brilliant that you put the three of us together, because you're talking about three systems that our next generation needs to be familiar with. They need to be comfortable in. Whether you're talking about community, you're talking about the professional organization, or you're talking about academia, our next generation of young people, they need to be comfortable and be familiar with it. So there was one quote, and this is just in closing. It's a quote that I once heard. His name is James Harris. He is the president of University of San Diego in California. And in a book that they just wrote, he and his colleagues said that academia is the backbone of a nation's innovation ecosystem, and that it is the community anchors that foster economic development and quality of life. So as much as there's so many traumatic events happening in all the systems that we belong to, the next generation of Indigenous people have to be comfortable in those systems and change it, especially academia. If academia is the backbone of a nation's innovation ecosystem, oh, we want to be 100% of that. So that's my challenge, and I guess my dream and wish for this next generation of Indigenous young people coming up. You're brilliant. You're probably the most brilliant generation ever. You can do it. You can do it. So come into academia, come into the community, to the professions, and uplift our community and our families.
Mahalo. Anybody else? So our next webinar is actually on October 14th. And that will be, we're still working on the guest speakers, but we're taking a more grassroots look at local leadership. It will be same, it will be most likely, you know, a mix of speakers, but that will be October 14th for the next one. Keep an eye out on your email. We'll stay in touch. Again, if the panelists can stay on after this for a couple minutes after, that would be great. But mahalo everyone for joining us, and we'll see you soon. So malama pono, aloha ke kahi, and we'll talk to you soon.